Hi everybody, and welcome. This is the Apostate Prophet. I'm doing this very rarely. Actually, I've never done this. But today I want to review a TV show. My chair is cracking. Can someone... I need a new chair. It's not cracking, it's creaking. I need to learn English. I did want to make a review about the show Messiah a few months ago, but I didn't really want to because that show was arguably one of the dumbest series that I've seen in my entire life. And I've seen a lot of Turkish series. There is a lot of competition with that. So I want to talk about the show Caliphate, which is a show that you can now find on Netflix. It's a Swedish show in its original title, Caliphate, which means Caliphate. Who would have thought? And I just finished this show yesterday with my wife, and I'm so impressed by it that I feel everybody should watch this. Especially everybody who is interested in what I am doing and who is interested in these topics surrounding Islam and Islamic terrorism and all these things. Even people who are not interested in that at all. Just for the drama or the thriller or the beautiful interpersonal relationships in that movie. You really need to watch that. The show is available to watch in English audio on Netflix. I have personally watched it in English too, not in the original Swedish. Although I do want to go back and watch it in Swedish again. Although, I don't know, Swedish sounds pretty horrible. It almost sounds as terrible as Arabic. Imagine. Maybe that's why Arabic speakers love Sweden so much, because the languages are equally horrible or similarly horrible. Maybe that's why all the Arabic-speaking people go there, to Sweden. Can you imagine walking through the streets of Sweden? On one side you hear Swedish, ja, här en ålder dag, sukker, stokker, dokker, sukker. And then you walk a few steps further and you hear, yani, wallahi, it's horrible. It must be terrible to live there in Sweden. Maybe that's why they all want to speak English. Because they don't like the sound of their own language, which I find totally understandable. I'm just kidding, of course. The series Caliphate is a brilliant series. By the way, many Indian speakers are probably watching this and enjoying the mockery of other people's languages, whereas their own language sounds like you have something stuck in your... But on the other hand, we are speaking English, which is arguably the dumbest, most illogical language in the world that we are all, for some reason, forced to speak. Anyway, I'm just kidding. It's all good. All languages are beautiful. Caliphate revolves around very interesting characters. And it starts with a Turkish woman named Pervin, who is stuck in ISIS-controlled Raqqa, in the city Raqqa in Syria, with her husband who is a ISIS fighter. The show starts with her walking through the streets with another woman and witnessing a scene where someone is being punished in a brutal Islamic way. And you see it in her face, you hear it in her voice, she just wants to get out of there. The show doesn't feel less hopeless further into the episodes. Her husband is Hussam, an ISIS terrorist as said, who is also from Sweden, but originally from some Arab country, just like Pervin is from Sweden, but originally from Turkey. Hussam struggles a lot, and he tries to help ISIS with intelligence to organize terrorist attacks. But he has also apparently done some very horrible things throughout his terrorism, where you do horrible things, and he is going through a very difficult mental health struggle. On the other hand, in Sweden, we have a character named Fatima, who is an agent of the Swedish security service. She is very important. Pervin, who is in Syria, is in contact with Fatima, and Fatima is trying to get Pervin out of Syria. In the entire show, she's in a very exciting way after the terrorists and trying to solve the plot of a big terrorist attack that is about to happen. This is one of the most gripping things about the show. On the other hand, we have Sule, who is in Sweden and who is the daughter of a Palestinian man who is no longer a Muslim. And she is in contact with a character trying to recruit her as a terrorist. Sule is going through kind of an identity crisis and is being brainwashed, thinks that Sweden is the enemy. She tries to find her identity in Islam, which her father is against. And we have many other characters, including these two bald Swedish guys who are very sick. The show really gets very exciting and very depressive, very hopeless. Combined with the dark music that you hear in the background all the time, it gets very hard to watch. It was very hard to watch for me. I don't know, I could relate to much of what is going on in there, to the characters and their struggle with their religious sentiments. But this show is very important to watch because I think it reflects something that many people often don't understand, which is that terrorists, people who commit terrorist attacks, people who join organizations like ISIS, who are radical Islamists, Islamic terrorists or otherwise, are not fundamentally different people who are fundamentally evil and there's something wrong with them. No, they are very normal people who are simply brainwashed, who believe in very terrible things which make them commit very terrible atrocities. I think it is one of the great misunderstandings of people to think that those who commit massacres, those who blow themselves up, those who kill others for religion, for ideology, for this and that those people are sick. That is, I think, a big misconception. What is true is that many people who commit terrorist attacks are very normal people that you could sit down with and have a normal conversation with. Maybe people that are a little bit disturbed about the world, about how unjust the world is, and about how the world is dealing with so many unnecessary things, and how they want the world to deal with more important things like establishing an Islamic Caliphate. But what's important to know is that many of these people are completely normal people. People that can have a fruitful, intelligent conversation with you, and that will suddenly disappear in a month and then blow themselves up at a concert or in the middle of a crowd. People commit these acts because they are brainwashed and because they are severely affected by very terrible ideologies, which we must face and therefore fight and deal with. If we don't recognize that what motivates these people are ideas, not craziness, then we cannot solve the problem. If we do notice that it's the ideas, the ideologies that brainwash these people, then maybe we can tackle the issue better. We can understand how people can be tricked, how people can be brainwashed. Maybe we can pinpoint these problems better and be successful in preventing them before they happen. And we can honestly talk about how some ideas are simply dangerous and bad. For example, the show presents, I don't want to give too much away from this, but at least one girl, Sule, who is a regular girl and who doesn't really understand much about religion. She doesn't have much of an idea about what Islam is. All she starts learning is that many Muslims are apathetic people who don't care much about their religion, who don't practice their religion properly, and she gets mad about this. She sees that there are certain people who actually do something for Islam, who fight for Islam, who take up the words, the orders of Islam, and who honor Islam. And she gets more interested in that. And as she goes into that hole, she gets sucked into the brainwashing. And although after a while she doesn't even properly know how to pray and how to read scripture or how to do anything, she becomes a strong, loyal believer in the cause, the sick cause of ISIS. The show shows how easily people can be tricked and brainwashed into thinking it is a completely great idea to go to Syria and be the wife of some ISIS terrorist. Or how other people who feel desperate can easily think that it is the good thing to do to go and blow yourself up or to shoot people. It presents the senselessness and emptiness of this typical mainstream Muslim response that this is not Islam, that's not real Islam. In Islam, it is the greatest jihad to struggle with yourself. And that this doesn't help at all. Because someone who is interested in ISIS and who follows their footsteps understands already that this mainstream Muslim defense is simply naive and stupid and wrong. It doesn't help. It won't change the mind of someone who is interested in practicing radical, fundamental Islam. And really, the show, from a Swedish perspective, which I think is very relevant in what has been going on with ISIS and refugees and all that, the show presents a current struggle or a very recent struggle very well. A recent struggle that is not very well represented in American movies and TV shows, for example. I think this show is very crucial. I think it's very great that this show exists. I think watching this show would enlighten anybody. Someone who thinks Islamic terrorism has nothing to do with Islam. Someone who thinks Islamic terrorism is not a big problem. Someone who thinks terrorists are just evil, weird monsters that are not like you and me. Someone who thinks terrorism is okay. Or maybe just someone like me who wants to finally see popular culture address this issue that we have, that we should talk about. My suggestion is please go and watch this show, Caliphate. You will enjoy it, and although it will not make you an expert on these issues, which cannot happen through popular culture, it will at least make people understand a few things about the conflict with Islamic terrorism. Since I started this like a review, I want to give a score to this show. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. 9, not 10. I cannot give 10. That's because You just don't give 10s. You just give 9s. 10 is symbolic. It's not supposed to be given. That's how it works. You just give 9s. Even if it's the best thing you've ever seen, you give a 9, not a 10. A 10 is reserved for nothing, for God. I don't know. Have a fantastic day and stay away from Islam.